Okay, welcome to our fifth and final debate for our series of debates for the upcoming 5 Anchorage Assembly races. We're here with the 3 candidates from the Eagle River Chugiak open seat. Crystal Kennedy, the incumbent, is not running for re-election, so we have Vanessa Stephens, Kevin Cross, and Gretchen Wehmhoff here in studio. We're going to be doing the debate. I want to first thank our sponsors, the IBW Local 1547, training and representing electrical and communication workers all over Alaska. Alaskans for Better Elections, working to inform people about Alaska's new voting system, and GCI, providing internet, telecom, and wireless services throughout Alaska. We're going to begin with opening statements, then go into some topics on issues affecting Anchorage. We're going to do candidate questions, some more topics, one more round of candidate questions, and then a closing statement. I want to remind everybody, ballots go out today, March 15th, and they will be out till April 5th is the conclusion of the election. So we drew the start at random, and we're going to start with you, Kevin Cross.
Thank you. I'm Kevin Cross, running for District 2, Chugiak Eagle River. Born and raised right here in Anchorage, Alaska. Used to ride a 3-wheeler to elementary school over off Huffman. And now I'm proud to say that Eagle River, Chugiak is my home. Love it out there. I'm probably the furthest thing away from a politician you could ever meet. I grew up in the trades as a union pipe fitter for 14 years, Union 669, pulling wrenches, doing slope work, working in villages. I always joked that my idea of skincare is stitches, and if you said plastic surgery, I'd be thinking about fiberglass boat repair. But the recent couple years have really just called to me and said that you can just try to focus on your family, focus on your business, and focus on your community, but there's only so much that you can do until you really get involved. And the only reason I'm running is because I'm really concerned about the future of Anchorage. The last couple of years, I don't think have been in the best interest of small business, private property rights, or the individual. And so this is my way of trying to make a difference. I was president of the Board of Realtors in 2014. I'm current chair of the Anchorage Platting Board. I've always been very well engaged in providing affordable housing, helping create affordable housing, and fighting for to try to make homes more affordable. Since real estate, I've watched, is the best vehicle that I've seen for individuals to become individually wealthy. And so I want that to happen for more people in Anchorage. I want that to happen a lot for the people in Chugiak Eagle River, since we are the future of real estate development. And I'm very concerned about what that means for our neighborhood. And I look forward to being your next assemblyman. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Vanessa Stephens, opening statement.
Thank you, Jeff, for having us. I appreciate the opportunity to say what, or start out with what with my basic skill set. I was born and raised, lifetime here in Alaska, born and raised in Chugiak. I've been here for over 45 years, experienced and met a lot of people, met hundreds of people, thousands of people probably in the years that I've been here. I'm very well acquainted with the neighborhood. I have worked with, what I've done mostly is worked. I started my very first business at 13. I have worked almost my entire life or volunteered for different things. And in doing that, you meet a lot of people who are involved with different projects, different specialties, different things, like Gretchen here has been teaching, Kevin here has been in construction and buildings, and you tend to get very experienced and very knowledgeable about your areas. What I've done is I spent 7 years with the Anchorage Police Department, so I worked for the municipality. I started a business out of my garage that went from out of my garage to over $1 million a year. I have helped build the Peters Creek Trading Post, which for many years was the centerpiece of the Peters Creek vicinity. We ran that up until 2005, until my mother sold the business to some investors. Our family has been in the area for almost 80 years. And a lot of what Kevin said fits me too. I'm probably about as far away from being a politician as Kevin is. I've been a doer and a thinker, and I have a degree in computer science, so I think fairly logically, I hope. But I try to support people in the community by either management, by managing businesses, by working in the businesses, by building businesses, by supporting the people. Managed the Chevron station in Eagle River for 2 years, managed the Chevron or the Peters Creek Trading Post for 2 years. have been involved with so many things. I've been involved with the Chugiak Senior Center for over 10 years. And like Kevin said, it's our opportunity to step in and help keep things straight and moving in the right direction for the Chugiak Eagle River people.
Thank you, Vanessa. Gretchen Wehmhoff, opening statement.
Thank you. And thank you for having us today. I'm Gretchen Wehmhoff, and I, of course, am running for the same seat that these two wonderful people are. I came to Anchorage in 1965. I was 6 years old and started grade school here, Willowcrest, and then I graduated from Diamond Mears Junior Senior High, if we remember that. I went to the University of Denver and got a degree in speech communication and a minor in mass communication. And my first jobs, I started working in high school was fixing musical instruments. And my second job, I started working as in food. And I've been a food server for 20 years, off and on with all my jobs. So I'm very appreciative of being able to work when you can work. My first job out of college was working for the Girl Scouts as their public relations director. And then, of course, I decided that I wanted to teach kids. And I went back to school and became a teacher. And I taught for a couple years in Kenai, a year at Diamond, and then 21 years at Chugiak High School, where I taught debate and journalism. And I think that teaching and studying debate and journalism led me into, of course, my master's, which is negotiation and dispute resolution. I always like to get as much information as possible. I think information is key, and we can't make decisions without good information. And sometimes we have to make decisions with quick information, like turn so you don't slam into another car. But when it comes to government, and it comes to transparency in government, we need to be as open as we can and look at both sides. So even though someone on the assembly may be entirely different in their way of thought, it would be wrong for me not to engage that person with conversation to understand something, to make sure we can get there. So I'm running because I believe that we can work better together, and I think that we can have those hard conversations together. Anchorage needs us, Chugiak Eagle River needs us, and I want to represent Chugiak Eagle River for the wonderful place it is.
Thank you, Gretchen. Appreciate that. I want to start off with, this is an open seat. Crystal Kennedy, the incumbent's not running for re-election, and I want to start off asking about the fundraising. The other races have seen hundreds of thousands of dollars pour in the East Anchorage race. It's almost combined $400,000. This race, it's much less. Kevin, you've reported about 26,000. Gretchen, you just under 10,000, and Vanessa, you haven't reported any income. I guess maybe start with you, Kevin. Why do you think this race has seen so little money compared to the other races where there's money pouring in?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't ask a lot of people for money. I think there's too much money in politics, to be perfectly honest with you. My campaign driver, everybody around me tells me I need to ask more people for money. But I kind of feel bad doing that because I come from the construction where you prove what you're worth before you ask people to dip into their pockets. Now, I realize that that's important and you got to contribute. But
it takes money to.
It does. It does take money, doesn't it? And that's the unfortunate part. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. That's a good question. I think that it's because, I will be honest, listen, we have our political differences, but what you'll discover in this conversation is we actually agree on like 98% of what we want to keep for Chugiak Eagle River. There's some minor differences, but we all care tremendously about So from the voter standpoint of what's happening in the neighborhood, they're kind of looking at it like maybe they've already made up their mind. They know what the directions is. It's also, at Eagle River, in Chugiak, we don't consider ourselves necessarily part of Anchorage, even though we are. Kind of feel like we're that lone crusader in a desolate world on the edge of Anchorage. But they're typically very conservative. And we know conservatives, that's the big issue, the challenge I have, as a conservative candidate. They don't typically are great at showing up at the polls. And they're also, honestly, really, really restrictive with their money until they know that it's going towards a worthy investment. And I think that's what you're seeing.
Gretchen, I'll go to you next on the fundraising.
Well, I joined the race. I was supporting another person who was running, and I thought she would be perfect, and I really hope that she comes back and does it again. But for personal reasons, she chose not to run. And I knew that every race needs people to be able to be accountable for what they say and what they promise. And I have run this race before. I was ready to go. But as far as fundraising, obviously, it was behind the ball. So all of that money happened after February 1st. I do think that a lot of money is going into the bowl area. I think there's a lot of money going to the incumbent races between the both sides of the incumbent races are getting a lot of attention for that. And since we're not an incumbent race, and we definitely have some open challengers, that might be part of it as well. So I'm thinking that that's a big picture. Another big picture is we do sometimes get cut aside, and there are people that kind of forget that Eagle River is part of Anchorage. And so I think that has come of it too. I find that most of my donations have been coming from citizens and quite a few from the Chugiak Eagle River area, although I am getting quite a few people from Anchorage as well.
Thank you. And then we'll go to Vanessa. You haven't reported any income, so I guess what's your strategy in the race when it's hard to reach people without money?
Well, my strategy really has been going to the people and talking to them. For the most part, I have had people volunteer to help me out. I have, like has been said, when you're a little bit more conservative, you're a little bit tighter with your money. You want to know where your money goes. You want to know what it's spent on, which is part of the reason I think all three of us are running, is we are looking to be more conservative. We want to get some answers from the assembly, and we want them to tell us, hey, this is where this went, where this went. And without having some, knowing where this money's going to and where it's coming from for the city, you see, screwing this all up. Anchorage is such a big city. You've got people who are more concerned. You look at this assembly, there's 9 city members. There's 2 for Chugiak Eagle River. So not a lot of money comes in. And to be honest too, like Kevin said, I really haven't asked a lot of people for money. I was looking to mainly show up, come and say my piece, say, that what we're looking for is to get, like what we haven't seen in the last couple of years is an administration that works together. And we want to do it for the people that we've known with me for 45 plus years. We want to see the accountability that has not been present for too long.
Okay, thank you. You all, I was waiting until the end to talk about the Eagle exit, but you've all touched on this topic. So let's start with, or go into the Eagle exit. I'm going to ask all of you, do you support Eagle exit? This is the move for some to basically decouple Eagle River from Anchorage and become its own thing. So I'll start with you, Vanessa. Do you support Eagle exit? And if you do or don't, explain why.
Well, it's a good question. My father actually was an assemblyman on the original borough back in the 70s when Chugiak and Eagle River were briefly, when Lee Jordan was our mayor out there, we briefly were separated from Anchorage for about half a year. My father was elected as the assemblyman for the Peters Creek area. I'm sorry, the question
are you in favor of it or not?
Favor. I have been going to the meetings. I've been listening to what they have to say. They have invited me in, very friendly. They're very informative to tell me what's going on and what they're doing. But they're still at what I would consider the initial phases of what can be done with separating Chugiak and Eagle River from Anchorage, where we have been in a very symbiotic relationship for a lot of years. Anchorage has supported us, we've supported Anchorage, but breaking apart and becoming a separate city is a very big project, and there's just literally hundreds of different things to determine. And at this point, I'm waiting to see what comes out of the Eagle Exit team before I decide.
I'll go to you, Kevin, on Eagle Exit.
I'm a big fan of small, limited government. So if it was done right, I'd support it. And more importantly, do the people of Chugiak Eagle River support it? And I think that should have gone to an advisory vote where they had a right. And I think the people of Chugiak Eagle River should have had the right to vote on that and discover if they wanted to have the research do the research and know the facts of what that would look like. We're married to Anchorage. Okay, and so as much as we want to claim our independence, we are involved with bonds. We have bonded indebtedness that we share, and that's going to be messy to separate. Additionally, look, I'm having to run for government because I'm not seeing the individuals, or I'm not seeing the caliber of individuals in our elected officials that we've seen. So this is why I'm stepping up. My also concern is that if we were to separate, do we have enough people who care enough about their community to step up? Because we're going to have to fill a lot of seats. We're going to need our own planning and zoning. We're going to need our own administrative, whether we get police officers out of Wasilla or what that looks like. And so, it's a complicated, like Vanessa says, and it's a complicated business. But if we could do it and we could get a small local government, then fantastic. But more importantly, it has to be the will of the people.
I think one of the things people have raised the questions is how much would the taxes need to be raised, property taxes to...
Right now we pay the disproportionate share. The Eagle Exit did their study, and I don't know, you'd have to check to see the verifications, but they said we were applying approximately just shy of $70 million in property taxes annually, whereas we're only receiving around $34 million in public services back. And so you might say those numbers are skewed, but obviously there's a feeling out there that we're getting taxation without representation. Our entire District 2 only has 4 police officers for the entire area at any given time. Okay, that's probably a fraction of what other areas of town require in services. We have a volunteer fire department. Our Subursa agreement and our contractors who manage the roads do an amazing job for a fraction of what municipal employees charge to do the other roads. So we look at that and we're like, maybe we drill a moat or something, between what does that need to look like? But it really comes back to taxation without representation and getting people on the assembly that respect Eagle River.
Okay, Gretchen, on Eagle Exit, what do you think? Support it or?
I want to clarify the difference between Eagle Exit and separating Eagle River, Chugiak from Anchorage. Eagle Exit is a group of people who are exploring this and trying to get folks to go with them. They're trying to do some studies, but they haven't been able to bring enough money to do all their studies, and they haven't been able to bring some of the answers that people are looking for. In addition, the area they're looking at is the current District 2, which includes Jay Bear and it includes part of Muldoon. So how do you figure those numbers when we know that the military base and Muldoon's not going to want to be part of that? So I think it's very, very clear that we say, okay, that's a group of people that are on a mission to try to do something. The actual idea of splitting off from Anchorage is a whole different world, and I think both of my opponents have said the same thing. We need a lot more information to get set. It's a lot more complicated, and I don't believe that the people in Chugiak Eagle River are all gung-ho about it. I think they are people who want good information. And they want someone to tell them, well, would it work or not? And we don't have that. And I do want to talk about the opportunity that Kevin mentioned was missed, was the vote from the people on whether or not we should split or have a study. I don't have an issue with having a vote. My issue, and I did speak against this, was that it was brought to the assembly on a Tuesday, and 8 days later, they were going to decide whether or not to put it on the ballot. So my issue had a lot to do with transparency and letting people be involved. And I did not feel that Chugiak Eagle River was ready for something that fast without more information.
And I'll just add, as you mentioned, it is based on the boundaries, and the group hasn't yet petitioned the Boundary Commission.
No.
Which needs to be the kind of first step. So it is conceptual still, but it is being talked about a lot. So.
Vanessa's right, but I do want to make sure people don't say Eagle Exit as though it's the whole group and it's a thing. It's a group of people who really want to do it, but it's not representative of an entire policy that's going on out there.
Okay, we're going to go to the first round of.
I just wanted to say, I don't call you my opponents. I call you my fellow candidates.
Oh well, okay. Well, my fellow candidates.
Hey, neighbors.
Hey, guys.
This is a very civil debate. Actually, I think in this case, let's go. Was going to ask this later as well, but the assembly and the mayor, it's been very contentious, that relationship. Even before the mayor, since COVID, there's been a lot of tension in these assembly meetings, starting in 2020 with the COVID situation, and then going to the mask mandate. And then when Mayor Bronson was elected, it's been very contentious. I'm sure you've all seen the meetings and watched. I guess we'll start with you, Kevin, on if you're elected, how are you going to work with the assembly and the mayor? And do you think we can get back to a more normal, boring kind of assembly meeting where it's not so crazy and contentious?
I think a big part of that, so I agree. Completely. That it's been behavior on both sides. I've seen individuals in the public who have not been respectful, and I've seen members of the assembly who aren't respectful. And when they create that kind of contentious, it's not a good situation at all. Okay. I will say that the assembly has kind of put gas on that fire. Okay, what they did with 2021, 11, 17, where they expanded the powers of the chair. Now, I'm chair of the Anchorage Planning Board. We have angry homeowners come to us all the time. We don't shut them down. We don't have them escorted. We let them vent, and we say, and then we guide them and say, you're kind of complaining to your mailman that you got a bad haircut. Here's where you need to go in order to do this, but we really appreciate you sharing your vents. You can't disregard people and have them escorted out. If anybody has children, they realize that if you have a child who's crying, if you try to smother his mouth, they're going to reach out with their fists, and you see people getting angry. And I don't think the assembly has been respectful, to be honest with you, and it's a disappointment. As far as working with other people, I think it has to do with and here's what I've discovered in all these debates. There's actually a lot of what we agree on a lot of things. We all agree the port's an issue. We all agree that homeless is an issue. We all agree that we have budget concerns. We're all concerned about these bonds. We all have the same concerns. But it's these things on the outside edge. It's when you're in power, how do you conduct yourself? Because the character of an individual shows up when you're stressed, right? And for individuals like myself, we look at the assembly and we look at some of these things they've done in the last 2 years, and we say, it wasn't COVID that destroyed Anchorage, it was the reaction to COVID, and is what looks to be an authoritarian state, and we don't want that. So, we got to work with the assembly, but it's by having mutual goals.
Gretchen, we'll go to you. You were briefly on the assembly. You were appointed to a vacant seat. Yeah. This is before it got kind of crazier right. as it's been. Your thoughts on the contentious assembly and going forward?
Well, I think part of the contentious assembly had a lot to do with assembly members understanding the policy and procedures for handling a meeting. And I think a lot of the contention that came in April was introduced and encouraged by an assembly member, by actually the person that I was going to run against next year, if she's still around. But I truly believe that concept of inviting people to cause trouble, to slowing down the process and delaying the process, kept the people's business from happening. And I also know that at that point, people were still very concerned about masks, and people who would like to have spoken might have felt intimidated coming down because of the uproar and what was going on. So, but as for the future, I think that has toned down quite a bit. I think that people are working together better. And I do think that there have been efforts with the assembly and the administration to try to work things out. They're still coming up with struggles. But I think if everyone would be civil and listen to policy and say, this is how we do things, we don't pull the carpet out from someone just because we don't like what they say. We go in there and we talk about it. We say, well, I don't like what you're saying. I'm not going to vote for it. Here's why. But we don't create a situation just to hold off a decision.
Thank you. Vanessa, we'll go to you on the topic of the assembly and the contention. And
well, obviously, it's a little bit of both sides. The mayor has done some crazy things, like stopping the fluoride introduction to the water system for 5 hours or something like that. There was some discussion about him making some donations or money exchange for something to do with some kind of an inmate or somebody who was arrested. I'm not sure the details. And it seemed to kind of go away very quickly. But I can't really say much more beyond what Gretchen and Kevin have said. They need to, some of these things don't need to be brought out in the public. It's like, if your child needs to be spanked, or something needs to be said to the child, you take them to another room and you say, this isn't the way we do things. This is, let's be more civil. This isn't how you talk to your grandmother. This isn't how you talk to your father. This is how you treat them. Go apologize and be more civil in your discourse with them. And I think that we had plenty of opportunities to do that, except over about a 6 month period, like Gretchen said, one of the assembly members tended to exacerbate the situation unnecessarily, and which raises the hackles of the assembly and raises the hackles of the mayor, and trying to remove the glass separation during COVID. I mean, there's all sorts of crazy stories that you hear, and these are things that could have been taken care of civilly in the back room without having to bring it out into the public and embarrass your children and your family, and say, well, this is how our government acts, is like a bunch of children, and we don't want that.
Thank you, Vanessa. We're going to go on to the first round of candidate questions, and we are kind of going a little bit over, so we're going to try to maybe make it a little more brief, but on the responses. I'll start with you, Kevin. You can choose either Vanessa or Gretchen to ask a question, and then the person who can answer, and then you can briefly respond. So we'll go to you first, Kevin.
Yeah, so my passion and my, is in helping small businesses grow and in helping private development. And so I guess my question would be for Gretchen, which is, what is your vision for our business district, and what are your thoughts on how we grow? Because regardless of who gets in there, we both care about those businesses. What are your thoughts on how to grow the business, our district, business boulevard in that area, and inspire more small businesses into the area?
Well, I do know that we need to revisit our comprehensive plan, and we need to revisit some of our zoning issues. But it needs to be done with the people of the community, the Chugiak Eagle River community. It can't be just done up at the assembly. It needs to be involved there, because we do need. Our small businesses suffered quite a bit. Heck, we lost our whole McDonald's, not calling that a small business, but the whole building went down. We lost several buildings that really affected small businesses during the earthquake. And then COVID, of course, was terrible at it. So I think we need to think about that. There's the concept of letting more businesses come into town, and that might be reevaluating our policies that we have on zoning. I think that the chamber out there has been really good. I mean, I think that the Eagle River itself is very good at supporting itself. And I think that involving people in decisions such as where businesses can be located and how do we support the traffic patterns for businesses. I think that in many ways, because the Chugiak Eagle River Chamber of Commerce has been so active, businesses have been doing fine. But I know they're hitting a lot of problems. I don't want to say problems, but doorstops sometimes when they're trying to figure out some zoning issues.
Kevin, brief response if you want. It's not obligatory.
No, it's good. So I've been a commercial real estate broker for about 14 years and a commercial lender for several years, and I've watched businesses get stifled and crushed in the last couple years. Not equal protection under law. Many put out of business while business down the street was able to thrive. And as far as our business corridor, the municipality needs to get out of the way of small business. Okay, they have obviously shown that they're hostile towards small business. They're happy to jack up property taxes and put the burden on them. But where do they show up? They took our FEMA funds that could have been directed to small business, and of course they put it towards other state expenses and towards other things. And the small business person got left out in the lurch. So I think what we need is, although I support what Gretchen says, and I do agree, what we need, in my opinion, is that I'm much more involved and I'm much more knowledgeable on this topic. I'm also very familiar with the planning and the permitting departments, because as a business, I've helped a business develop. And that whole area that house needs to be cleaned. Okay. It's not easy to run a business in this town.
Thanks, Kevin. Vanessa, we'll go to you. You can choose either friend, I guess, not opponent, and ask a question.
Fellow candidates.
Fellow candidates.
Fellow candidates. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Boy, I have, and certainly not to be, the name of your website is?
Cross4ak.com.
Cross4ak.com.
Yep.
I was curious if, do you have greater, do you anticipate going for higher office in the state? Calling yourself Kevin for AK, because you're not Kevin for Eagle River at this point. You're Kevin for the state. And I can see where you can say, okay, Chugiak Eagle River Anchorage is pretty much half or more of the state. And so that makes a big difference. But are you looking to use Assembly as a stepping stone to possibly move into a state position politically?
Thank you for the question. Go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, thank you. No and heck no. I will tell you what. I'm only running for assembly because the last 2 years I felt like a financial piñata they're just beating the crap out of. Sorry, but I'm not happy with the way our government's going. I would love nothing more than to be able to fix everything in 3 years and go back to building tree forts for my kids or doing something I love, which is building furniture or running a business and providing for employees or helping people thrive. But unfortunately, what happens is, like my dad said, you either shut up or you put up. Now, I consider the municipality of Anchorage like a bus that's stuck in the ditch, and everybody's complaining, but there's only so many people that are getting out and pushing. So I would love that if Crystal Kennedy would continue, but she's not. And with the vacancy of a good, strong conservative candidate who respects the Constitution and private property rights, I had to do something. Because I tell you, just like Gwyneth, we both threw our hats in the ring real close to each other. I only beat her like by 2 weeks. We waited as long as we could until we said, is nobody else going to do this? All right, I guess we better do it. And so that's why I'm here.
Thanks.
So I appreciate that question.
Thanks, Kevin. And Vanessa, brief response if you'd like.
That was a good answer. And I agree. It's like if you can get in there, get the job done, take care of things, straighten them out. I don't plan on making this a career situation. I'm not a lifetime politician. I want to go in there in one term, straighten things out, and get back out. And
yeah, the money's miserable.
yeah.
So it's not for a career.
If you want to get rich, don't get into politics.
There's probably more money in multi-levy marketing somewhere.
We'll go to Gretchen now for your question to either candidate.
Okay, that was a hard decision. I'm gonna go with Kevin, but could Vanessa speak to it too? Or should just one?
How about you use your second question for both of them? We'll do that.
Okay, that sounds fair.
So we'll just use one question for both the candidates.
So Kevin, you had a flyer come out just recently. It came in the mail.
Thank you. Was I wearing one of my marks?
Yeah, you were. Yeah, and,
called man scarf.
Yeah, and the headline said "Freedom from Fear."
Yeah, freedom over fear.
Freedom over fear, and I wanted you to address the concept of people who may not want to speak up for fear that they may lose a position in the party, they may have someone go talk to their commanding officer, just for speaking up. And I'm curious about that because I don't know what that fear is, but I know that I have run across a lot of fear of people who don't want to speak up in this election. So
it's unfortunate because every voice matters, isn't it? We're a democracy, a representative republic, but in order for us to represent, everybody needs to feel as if their voice is heard. When I say freedom over fear, it's freedom of business. It's the freedom to a person to express themselves. A small business pays the property taxes, pays the insurance, pays the mortgage. If they want to open up their doors to a business and not require people to wear masks, then those people are free to go in and out of that business. Again, it was fear. When the fear showed up, our assembly and our government showed up to say, here, are we going to respect the Constitution and the individual rights of people, or are we going to express ourselves tyrannically and shut people down and not even allow them? And to have a difference of opinion. It's freedom over fear. It's when my 7-year-old son goes to Walmart, and when I tell him he doesn't have to wear his mask, he says, I don't want to die, Daddy. Okay? That fear was not put in him by me or his family. That came from whatever he was doing at his public school. Now, I love our teachers, love everything, but he got some information that somebody put in him the fear that he's going to die if he takes his mask off. This is unacceptable. We can't have this. And so when I put that out there, these are what I see. And don't think that it's over. Look at what's happening in the news today with Ukraine and 24 different biological labs that are out there. And now China just launched 13 fighters into Taiwan yesterday. What is the next reason we got to make that we need to shut down the public and shut their mouths up?
Thanks, Kevin. You wanted to ask Vanessa the same question, Gretchen?
No, because that was very specific. But on my next round, I'll ask both. Do you want a rebuttal?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. And I get that, but you don't strike me as fearful at all. Okay, you don't strike me as fearful at all. But I have run across a lot of supporters who, Gretchen, I can't endorse you, but I'm there. And there is a fear of expressing yourself in our community. People are afraid to stand up and say, Well, I'm gonna vote. Let's say that I'm running. Oh, I am. But let's say
Let's say that you are.
Yeah, that we have. Hey, I'm gonna vote for Gretchen. Well, depending on where you are in the community, it's almost a dangerous thing to say. But more so when we have a current assembly member who goes after people when she disagrees with them, and that's where I was originally going, was next year for that. And so when I look at that freedom from fear, I want to say that no one in our community should be afraid, and yet there is this fear of retaliation for speaking up. And I'm going to say it's on both sides. I'm not going to say it's just one side.
I absolutely agree.
But that's what I was concerned about, is that where are we now that people cannot feel free to talk without retaliation?
Thank you, Gretchen. We're kind of going a little long here,
Sorry
but
about
I do
that.
want to do some more topics, and then we'll move around to questions. I want to talk about homelessness. This is a issue that affects Anchorage. We have the Sullivan Arena that's been operating for 2 years. It doesn't affect Eagle River as much. I mean, it's not as big of a problem, but being on the Assembly, it is something you're going to have to deal with. Mayor Bronson had a very specific plan. The navigation center. The Assembly has not really been able to change much, even going back previous mayors. I'll start with you, Gretchen. If you're elected, how do we solve this homelessness problem? And being from Eagle River, I guess, with the issue not affecting Eagle River as much as other parts of Anchorage, curious to hear your thoughts.
Okay. Well, it does affect us in Eagle River because we do have homeless people in Eagle River, and we do have a great distance from Eagle River to Anchorage for them. We just have a different kind of homeless, and perhaps it's higher up in the summer months, for that situation. We had some really great things happen with two giant donors that came in and say, here's some extra money. We want to be part of the team with the Assembly and the whole municipality. We want to be part of this team. And part of the goal was, of course, to purchase some buildings to help split up and offer services to our homeless. And some of that had some community pushback, but we did pick one particular hotel. And I think that the nice thing about picking these hotels is that there's room for people to live, whether it's temporarily, they get healthy or what, but there's also plenty of in and out room for cafeterias and screening and group meetings and services to come in and talk to them. So I don't disagree with that portion of it, but I think that what happened was that when Mayor Bronson came in, he was really very adamant about his promise to fix homelessness. And I think that the Assembly was already on a train, and they didn't match up. And I'm not so sure that either one of them would have done well on their own. But right now they're working together. And that's the best thing that could happen. And so I do have hope for our problem. I believe that because they're working together, we're going to get so much further. And I do wish we didn't have a certificate of need problem, because I think that would help us with our treatment centers.
It's a whole other debate.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Kevin, I'll go to you on the homelessness issue and working with, if you're elected, with the Assembly itself and the mayor on this issue.
So, the mayor and the Assembly's hearts are in the right places, but they're completely disconnected with it. I've been a landlord for longer than I can remember. That's what got me off the slope. And I have owned low-income housing projects, okay? I have tried to supply housing. I have worked with PRC, Alaska Housing, Home for Good, United Way, Catholic Social Services. I've done everything to help place people. And you know what it is, Jeff, and you know this. Your videos were great. There's no treatment. If you house people without treatment, one, you could say you're enabling. Two, that you don't solve the problem, because we know that they get in there and they thrash the units, because if they don't have the treatment, the problem still exists. They destroy the property, and that's why the public sector and the private sector is not stepping up. That's why so much is left on the MOA, because these landlords and these owners are just like, you destroyed my building, but then the municipalities like, stick with your own, good luck fixing that, good luck with your eviction, good luck whatever it is. And that individual can go back and jump on another housing program, get money, rent somewhere else and jump. Treatment has to be number one. In fact, I would rather see treatment centers than housing, because at least someone who gets treatment gets out of that cycle. Housing people and without offering treatment is like having a roof problem and just buying 5-gallon buckets and think you're solving the problem. And so we got to be more aggressive with treatment, and we need to understand that the legislation has not caught up with the reality, and that if you recognize the issues from the individuals who have the housing that could provide this and you gave them support, you would open up a lot more opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank
Kevin.
you.
Vanessa, on homelessness and kind of how it affects Eagle River and the solution going forward.
Oh, yeah, I'm sneaking over watching, and he's checking Kevin's notes. He's really good with notes. And Gretchen has got,
long as we solve the problem.
got this great extemporaneous teacher talk. That's wonderful. Here I'm just kind of the one who was pushed out forward when nobody else would volunteer to run. But that's a good point. We don't have the problem like Anchorage does. But Kevin is exactly right. I do have a daughter who's on the street, a heroin addict. You've got to find, there's two issues. One, these people have to want help. First off, they've got to say, I need help, I have a problem, I need to go somewhere to get it. But the problem is, we don't have any really instant systems. It's 2 weeks or longer before they can get the help that they need. We are too far behind the curve on these people falling deeper into drugs, into living homelessness, becoming used to that lifestyle, not reporting to anyone. And the ones who do come for help need that help quickly. So we don't have a lot of facilities right now to do that, and we need to increase funding or change the focus of how we're trying to treat this.
Thank you, Vanessa. I want to ask you guys, it's been in the news recently on marijuana shops in Eagle River due to a zoning issue with 1,000 feet compared to the 500 feet. There's really no ability for pot shops to be in Eagle River. There's been some discussion about changing that through 500 feet or maybe conditional use. I want to ask you if you support putting marijuana shops in Eagle River. We'll start with you, Gretchen.
Okay, so one of the issues, of course, when we first established our rules in the municipality when pot became legal, is that a group said, we don't really want them out here, so we're going to make it really extra tough. I mean, that's a real
the 1,000 feet.
The 1,000 feet from boundary to boundary, and it was on purpose, and it was specifically for that business. Now, time has come. We've seen businesses work. We've seen that they are businesses that they pay a lot for their licenses. They don't want their license to go away. We've learned that a lot of people, and I shouldn't use the word a lot, but more people than you would know use marijuana or appreciate marijuana. And maybe they're afraid to say it, but what we've been hearing out in Eagle River, every time someone does a poll or something, there seems to be more people that saying, well, why not, than no. The thing is, though, I really believe, and so I have no problem with a business coming out there. And I believe that if Chugiak Eagle River wants it, then we need to work together. Again, not the assembly doing it, but I'm a facilitator, I'm a teacher. I would be one of those people that would then meet with people and say, hey, we're going to talk about this and see how we're going to do it. Because I think the people of Eagle River need to make their own decisions. How many do they want? What are some other situations? Do we want to change this rule at all? So am I in favor of it? I'm in favor of that business finding a way, but I'm also in favor of sticking with the rules if we have them. But if rules got to be changed, then we should do it the right way. We should do it the correct collaborative way. Okay,
I'll go to you, Vanessa, on pot shops in Eagle River. For or against?
I would say it's been a very lucrative business. We've made, I believe in 2020, we made $25 million off the pot shop, off the taxes. So it seems like people want to say, no, we don't want it, but yes, we love all the tax money. We love all this money coming in to facilitate this project or that project, or to help with drug addiction, or solutions for that. I mainly feel that what's kind of a scary concept is I think we're 7 years into the pot project. 2015 was when it was approved. 2014 was approved. 2015 when they started. But the federal government's making noises about legalizing marijuana for the entire country, which would probably put 60 to 75% of our homegrown businesses out of business, and it would be federally approved. So you couldn't, we wouldn't have the control that we have now. So there are definitely some issues coming up if the feds get into the situation, and if we want to continue to get the tax money that we enjoy spending so much.
Thank you. I'll go to you, Kevin, on the marijuana shops in Eagle River.
Yeah, that's a tough one because, I'm a small government guy and I'm small, keep out of my business. And if I'm doing something legal, great. But at the same time, our community councils and stuff, when you're, so they want to, this particular pot shop over at Horseshoe Drive is, doesn't meet that 1,000 feet. So they're asking for a variance. And that's where the contentious runs. If they could do it somewhere else, but they want to be in that heart. And if you're going to give a variance, as we do on the platting board, it needs to meet 6 different criteria, and one of them is the community councils. So we have yet to hear from all the community councils and how they vote and if they support it, because that's going to be a lot of weight on whether they get that variance, because then just find something that's not such a contentious issue. My job is basically, and our job as the assembly representative, is to make sure that our community councils and the individuals are heard. And if we're going to grant special exceptions to things, that it is the express interest, it's in the best interest of what the community wants. And they haven't all weighed in yet. And the same part of me understands that if they're a legal business and they're doing it and they respect all the laws, then there'd be no reason not to. But in this particular case, they're looking for a variance, and that's where it gets sticky.
Would it be bad if I just added a fact that I think all of us would agree with it?
Briefly.
It's very briefly. One of their issues that they've shown us is that because of the 1,000-foot measurement, there are very few places that are eligible out in the area.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, they're the one, and it's the shooting range. so
pot and guns.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I just wanted to. I'm sure we all knew that, but yeah.
Okay, we're getting a little back on time. I'll ask you guys. Do you want to do one more question, or do you want to talk about affordable housing?
Whatever works for you.
Let's go into. I want to talk about affordable housing because this affects Anchorage and Eagle River. The housing is already more expensive, and I want to. I'll start with you, Kevin. You're in real estate. Price of a home right now in Anchorage is over $400,000. Also, it's an inventory issue.
It is.
And the price of homes in Eagle River even more expensive. So what's the role of the government, if there is a role, on increasing inventory and making housing more available for folks who want to live here or maybe want to move here?
Well, it is an affordability issue, and the government needs to get the heck out of the way. I mean, they've really done. There's a reason that building a house in Wasilla is 30 to 40% cheaper, and that so many of our police officers live out in Wasilla, and why there's a massive exodus. And it is the pure fact that the cost of construction in Anchorage is ridiculous. Anybody that's dealt with the permitting office and had to deal with building safety or anything understands that is convoluted. They are down over 20% in building permits over the last 20 years, but they're operating with more money and just as many employees, and yet it's taking still twice as long as it did pre-COVID. That's unacceptable. That cost goes into construction. When it takes a builder a year to get something approved at this kind of inflation rate, they're bidding projects that may not even be profitable by the time they're done dealing with the muni to get there. So there's a reason there's no supply. The other thing is on older homes, the permitting process to do improvements on older properties and what they do to property owners is ridiculous. Where if you want to update some of the older ones, because there's two ways. You can improve your existing inventory in the dilapidated houses. You can build more supply and then make it accessible. But really, government and its great all-inspiring wonder is that they love to throw money at a problem, but they never put it where it is, and all they do is hire people to get in the way. And our home builders are exhausted, and that's why they're moving out to Wasilla.
Gretchen, we'll go to you on affordable housing in Anchorage, and also talk about Eagle River.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue. My husband and I decided, gosh, what do we think our home's worth in reality? What are they going? So we actually
probably a lot more in the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, and you wouldn't think so. I would have thought, with the work we need to do on it, but that windstorm took care of a lot of our siding. But the idea was that there was nothing that was available that was a sensible price, and we weren't even looking on moving. So I can't imagine someone who on a normal salary being able to buy these homes. And I think one of it is, how do we encourage homes to be built that are not $400,000 homes? How do we encourage the smaller homes? And of course, when you go out to Chugiak Eagle River, we have, again, our Title 21, Chapter 10 comprehensive plan, where we have rules about 2.5 acres, we have rules about water, we have rules about slope. And so there's a lot of complications. And I think and we all know that Eagle River is one of the places that does have land. Cluton is a great landowner, and they're already working on some sections around Powder Ridge. But if zoning's an issue, then we have to bring it up. But I also think we also have other issues out there too, that our engineers who come out and inspect homes, our inspection program's different in Anchorage than it is in Eagle River. And that's been a little contentious, especially after the earthquake.
Okay, Vanessa, I'll go to you on affordable housing, Chugiak, Eagle River, and then Anchorage in general. And what's the role of government here to deal with this issue?
Is there anything left that Gretchen and Kevin haven't covered?
They got a lot.
They got most of it. But one point I would bring up is, and Kevin alluded to this slightly, is that the government continues to be involved, continues to spend money, continues to increase spending money, but they never cut back. Anytime something is implemented, anytime we start a program, anytime we start spending money, we never scale it back. Whether we have been losing people from Anchorage, I believe, since 2010. It's only been a few hundred a year, excuse me, but we have been losing people in Anchorage every year. And part of it is there's no affordable housing in Anchorage, and it's getting to be less affordable in Eagle River as well. It's just too much interference by the government. Too high of property taxes. It's like buying, Biden's solution to the oil crisis is to buy a Tesla. It's like we all got $60,000 lying around to put a down payment on a new home. None of us have that. So property, as it gets higher and higher, money from out of state is going to be coming in and buying up our property and taking the property away from local homeowners.
Thank you, Vanessa. I appreciate that. Again, I want to thank all the candidates for coming here for the fifth and final debate for our series. We're going to go to closing statements. We're going to start with you, Vanessa, on your closing statement. And you have a few minutes. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Again, thank you, Jeff, for inviting us all here. I really appreciated the opportunity to meet with Gretchen and Kevin and my assembly compatriots here. I just look forward to, again, and Kevin made the point before I could, that I'm not a politician. I kind of talked to a lot of people, and I know a lot of people, and they said, you've been here the longest, you've had the most experience, you've worked with the municipality, you've worked with the city, you've worked in small business. I did 3 years fixing and revamped the PC repair system on the North Slope in the 3 years that I took care of the computers up there. And they finally said, you just have more credentials and more, with your father being on the borough, us building the trading post, us being involved in the community for 80 years. It's like everybody kept pushing me forward. It's like, well, we definitely need some change. We need some upgrades in the assembly. We need to quit having these 9-2 votes where 9 Anchorage voters, liberal, conservative, whatever you want to call them, they tend to be liberal in my opinion, but they tended to shut down Crystal and Jamie. And we needed to change that. So that's why I have people who are volunteering to help me, why I haven't pushed to collect a lot of money. But we do have a vibrant campaign. We've reached out to a lot of people, and a lot of people have known me since I've grown up here and lived here, and even paid out-of-state tuition when I went to college. I was so enamored with staying as part of Alaska. So I do have a lot of different features about me that I think can be used very wisely to help figure out what's going on with the assembly and see what we can straighten out.
Thank you, Vanessa. Appreciate that. Kevin Cross, your closing statement.
Yeah, thank you. We have a high-class problem here in that you have 3 people that really love Chugiak Eagle River and love our district too, because we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't, okay? And we understand the importance of listening to our community councils and listening to the people, and that you put your egos, you put your personal agendas aside in order to best serve the community. We agree with that. The question ultimately is that even though it's a District 2, we are 1/11th, soon to be 1/12th, at least this seat is on the assembly, which represents Anchorage in general. And that brings a bigger question, is that you need to understand, you need to trust the caliber of the individual when given that kind of power. And what I mean by that is, in times of trouble, are those individuals going to seek to protect your liberties, protect your businesses, protect your rights? Or are they going to do like what we've seen the last 2 years and quickly stifle private property, quickly stifle businesses, and mask your children when there's whether or not you agree? And so this election is way bigger than Chugiak Eagle River. This is about the direction of Anchorage and what that looks like when we've got budget crises, we've got taxpayer liability for FEMA funds that were spent without discretion, we've got big port projects, we've got a lot of stuff. Do you want someone who respects the rights of the individual and understands how to hold a budget? And that is the bigger question here, because we all love our District 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Gretchen, you're...
Cut away for a cough.
Sure, yeah. You can cut that out.
Thanks, I was trying so hard to bite my tongue.
No problem.
It probably looked like you were angry. Like you're like, oh.
That's why we don't do it live.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, thank
Let me
you.
introduce you and then we'll...
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, and Gretchen, we'll go to your closing statement.
Thank you. And you mentioned, Jeff, earlier that I had been on the Assembly for about 4 months in 2019, right after the earthquake. And I want to say that was one of the most amazing jobs I had for 4 months. For 4 months, I was in a position where I could help people get through bureaucracy. I could talk to the bureaucracy. I had the opportunity to send a message or call someone within the place and say, I'm Gretchen, and of course I'm an Assembly member, and so I'd get the information faster. And I just felt that was such a helpful thing for the citizens to have someone who could be there and work with them. And so I really love the job because it's here, and it's we don't have caucuses. You can't be with more than a few at a time. We don't all go over together and decide what we're going to do. So I like that. And I also I believe that we will work better if we bring our community in with us. And I definitely know that we have done several things where the communities are at the last minute, whoa, what's happening in our community? And I know that when I worked on the water project for Birchwood, we were in a situation where the water was going to be needed to develop some land for the project with the municipality, but no one checked with the people in the middle where the water would go through. And those are the kind of things that we just can't do to our people. I believe that I can get along with people. I believe that everyone who's running here is very passionate about it. But I do know that if I'm on that assembly, you will know that I am working as hard as I can to the best of my ability to listen and work together. And that means making those tough votes that sometimes you just lose sleep over. Because I don't think anyone on that assembly has made every single vote without losing some sleep. So I do appreciate your time, and I appreciate your vote. I'm Gretchen Wehmhoff, and I'm running for Assembly seat for District 2.
Thank you, Gretchen. I want to again thank all of our candidates, Gretchen Wehmhoff, Kevin Cross, Vanessa Stephens, for being here. This is our 5th and final debate for our series of debates on the Anchorage Assembly races. I want to again thank our sponsors, the IBW Local 1547, Alaskans for Better Elections, and GCI. Again, ballots go out March 15th, and the election concludes on April 5th. And I again want to thank all of the candidates for all the races for being here. I wish Liz Vasquez would have responded to all my emails and phone calls and messages and all of that. So everybody except Liz got back to us. I want to thank all the candidates, and I want to thank Scott Jensen for producing these great videos and assembly debates, and looking forward to doing more of these debates as the year goes on for the legislative races. And I want to thank you again for tuning in and watching the District 5, or did I say? District 2. Whoa. See, I mixed it up. District 2, Chugiak Eagle River debate here on the Alaska Landmine. Thank you.